and welcome to The Art of Life. I'm your host, Willow Chang, and if you don't know, we broadcast live every Friday from 2 to 3 p.m. right here in the heart of Honolulu, right in downtown. We have one of our lovely guests who was a guest early on in my show last year, and I'm so pleased that he's able to join us again, Dr. Raj Kumar.
Thanks for having me here.
And if you are the guest, we know that it must be that time of year, just like a seasonal bird. Gandhi's birthday is up and coming, so we would like to explore that and a lot of the different things that you do personally along with the organizations to promote awareness and appreciation for the peace movement. But for those who have not seen our previous show or unfamiliar, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, your creation story? Where did you come from? How did you end up in Hawaii? How did you get into this calling of work?
I was born in India, migrated to US in 1989, and since then I have been practicing as a psychologist, as a healer, as a hypnotherapist, as a counselor, behavior therapist, and now I have become a peace activist. We laid down the foundation of our Peace Institute, Gandhi International Institute for Peace, on the day of 9/11. During those days, people did not know the meaning of jihad, and people were curious to know what it means. So I had to explain to the media that day by Gandhi's statue, jihad means a peaceful demonstration against injustice, but in a peaceful manner, not by killing innocent civilian on the street. So that's the real jihad, which was done and expressed by Gandhi, Martin Luther King, and Nelson Mandela. So since then, we are carrying this torch in Hawaii and sharing the message of Gandhi, the follow peace and nonviolence in your daily life. And every year we hold an event in Waikiki on October 2nd. This is the day in 2007. United Nations declared Gandhi's birthday as the International Day of Nonviolence.
Okay.
We had a great peace march from Magic Island to Waikiki. And since then, our institute is growing. People from many different faiths, organizations are joining us, and we are building bridges with various communities in Hawaii.
You know, you mentioned something which, forgive me because I didn't remember this, but it's interesting to me that 9/11, which in recent memory is certainly a hallmark in our nation as a very momentous day for various reasons, with the attacks at the World Trade Center. And you had mentioned that the creation of this foundation was born from that.
Correct.
We've had some previous guests on as well. David Tavares is one of them, and you can look at that. On the day of the attack, shortly thereafter, he signed up to be in the service, and quite a few of my friends have learned. It's interesting how something that is rooted in misunderstanding and a violent act can actually plant seeds of something that is actually much more positive. And so I think that that balance, I'm not going to sit here and argue that we need to have things that are violent, but I think it's important for us to remember and to take into consideration that when unfortunate things happen, there's always a flip side, which is that there's activism, that there's a movement that gains momentum to do something in a positive, to counterbalance that. And it's so nice to know that this is something that arose from an unfortunate event.
Yes, correct.
Now, we're going to get kind of heavy. Sometimes we do that on The Art of Life, but not everything is rainbows and unicorns. So that being said, you know, every year we do this and we take into account current events that are happening, and it feels like, you know, one step forward, maybe two steps back, or that balance, that pendulum swings back and forth. I kind of feel like right now, my goodness, we're at this juncture where there are multiple things that are intense, whether it's going on in the Ukraine or it's going on in Syria, the whole thing with ISIL. I mean, you can go on down the line. There are people that have been displaced. I think the UN says that there are more refugees at this point in time than in recent memory. That's a pretty vague estimate there, but I will get a link for that. Diaspora of people who've moved simply because they cannot sustain a safe life in the place that they are. Do you feel that there's a stronger need for a reflection on peace, or a call to peace, or a call to activism? What are your feelings about this?
Well, first of all, this is not happening first time in the 21st century. This violence is happening for centuries. In those days, we did not have the technology and media to expose it. For example, India was under this brutality almost from 5th centuries to 15th centuries.
Right.
There were a lot of massacres and genocide, and this all happened because of misuse of ego and belief systems, and still happening the same thing in Iraq and Afghanistan, and same philosophy that people feel that we are the only pure people. The people who practice different faith, they are not pure. And I believe that we should respect all people, whoever practice any faith. We should not discriminate with them. We should not punish them. Everybody should have a right to live the life they want to, the God they believe in. And if they want to convert to any religion, it should be their choice with freedom, not by force or sword. And no religion is superior to others. These are all different paths or vehicles propelled to God, to the same path or same destination or goal. So we should not say my God is superior than your God. So these are the differences, the religious differences, which are causing turmoil around the world from centuries. But it's time. We are living in an educated society, modern world, 21st century. So it's a shame that we are not teaching our youth, religious leaders, that it's time to forgive each other, live in harmony, and like a global family.
Can't argue with that. Those are all worthy pursuits,
Right.
challenging pursuits, and yet they seem like they should be easy things to move towards. I'm curious, what type of things do you think would help advance peace? Clearly, having an activist approach, whether that's showing up in numbers, even something like there was a huge demonstration last weekend about climate change, and that's something that everybody is affected by, regardless of their sacred or spiritual pursuits or religious beliefs or political beliefs or their gender, their age. Everybody's going to be affected by climate change. Other than peaceful activism like that in numbers, what do you think is helpful? Creating dialogues, having groups, having show and tell, writing letters? I mean, I'm not really sure. Some things maybe are more effective than others.
Peace is not absence of violence or war or noise. Peace is an internal experience, and the transformation begins within self, then at the social level, then at the national level, then at the international and universal level. So more we raise awareness about peace and nonviolence and practice them in our daily life, if we choose just one day a month and we say to ourselves or take a vow or commitment, today I'm going to be more silent, peaceful, calm, centered, and happy, and will make a difference in others' life, and I will do at least one act of kindness towards my peers, my family members, my neighbors, whoever you meet on the street. So that's how the peace, love, and happiness begin in our life.
I remember in Sunday school, we used to sing a song. It was, "Let there be peace on earth and let it begin with me," which I think is something that's applicable to everybody. Is a personal responsibility in finding methodology to find your center, to be able to come back to that place of calm and of strength ultimately. There's been a lot of media interest in anti-bullying movements, and if you think of it, the act of bullying it's just an extension upon fear and the need to control another person and to put another person down or to repress them. So I think it's safe to say that if you plant those seeds and you allow that behavior to start at a young age and it goes unchecked, and then it morphs into something else, whether it's physical violence or sexual violence or sexual assault, all of these horrible things that we see about on a pretty daily basis, it starts by not being able to speak up and kind of nip it in the bud and suggest that not only is it inappropriate and not positive or beneficial, but it's something that you can't allow to fester.
everything good or bad begins at home. The way parents interact to each other, how children watching their parents to communicate, how they're watching or witnessing things happening in their schools.
Right.
And when parents cultivate good seeds among their children, love, compassion, kindness, humility, these children become the leaders of tomorrow. And when parents are disruptive, aggressive, violent toward each other, children turn out the same because they are the product of the same family. So if you raise awareness that you have to be kind and gentle to others instead of using your ego, aggression, and abusing your power, then children will change. And same thing we need to apply in the school system. And to prevent the violence or being bullied, and we have to work with the school system, teacher, principal, special ed teachers, administrator, and train them, how to deal effectively with aggressive children or the students who are bullies with others,
Right.
and have some kind of consequences for them. Then it will bring a special change in the being bullied towards others.
These are wise words and heavy things to think about, but really essential into creating a sense of community and a sense of peace, as you said.
Yes.
We have to take a small break, but we will be right back. So we encourage you to think about these things, and we'll see you in a few moments. This is The Art of Life.
Hi, I'm Jay Fidel. That's Ted Ralston. Ted is the host of Where the Road Leads. It shows every Friday from 4 to 5 p.m. It's about technology. It's about how people collaborating and solve problems with modern technology. It's where the road leads. We all know that. We should all be listening. Join us there, 4 to 5 p.m. every Friday. Now, what about that do you agree with?
All of it.
I knew he'd say that. Aloha. Say aloha.
Aloha.
Good.
Here we are. And we're back, and this is The Art of Life. We are discussing matters concerning peace and global activism to encourage that, and we have a local individual who does that on a very regular basis, Dr. Raj Kumar. Welcome back to The Art of Life. We're so glad to have you. So right before we took the break, we were talking about bullying and how those types of behaviors manifest other unfortunate behaviors, and the responsibility of having a family unit, whatever you describe that is. You said a mother and a father. Clearly a nuclear family might be a thing of the past, so whoever those guardians are, those people who are in a leadership position, if you think of what it is to be a guardian, to take care of somebody, to create an environment that's safe for people to grow, to experience things, to reflect on things without feeling harassment, degradation, free from violence, all of those other things. And, we're going to bring it back to Gandhi here, beautiful flyer that's going to be distributed at next week's event. Perhaps one of the most famous quotes that people like to cite, which is, "Be the change you wish to see in the world." And I think that that's a really interesting thing to reflect upon, because I've known some people who've had tremendous hardships, terrible, nothing that you would ever wish upon somebody. Whether that's you're dealing with a family that has issues of addiction and all of those woes that are associated with it, or maybe they didn't have two parents, or maybe
Correct.
things were financially difficult, or maybe they encountered discrimination based on their gender or their sexual preference or their racial background, all of these things. And in spite of that, they are able to uplift themselves, and instead of going with the lowest common denominator, they seek to do something better for themselves. And I think that this idea of be the change you wish to see in the world is so essential, because it really asserts that if you start with yourself,
Correct.
if you've been subject to things that are unpleasant, it's the greatest lesson, because you know exactly how it feels, and you know exactly what it is that you don't want to perpetuate and how you don't want to treat others. But what do you think about this? I know that this is a very common
Well,
quote.
Gandhi preached and practiced ahimsa. Ahimsa means non-violence. That means you do not harm others in your thoughts, words, and actions.
Right.
And he also believed reaction to reaction is very dangerous. Even somebody swear at you, curse you, threaten you, you don't react. Stay calm, respond when the person is ready to talk. Or you walk away from the situation. Or just say, like a saint or guru, God bless you. Later on, that person will feel guilty and will come back to you and apologize. Or will face some natural consequence for his own behavior,
Now, see, I think in Hawaii we have a very unique, we have a really unique dynamic that's present in the islands because we have people from many different backgrounds, and then we have the strong Asian influences that are, of course, paired with the Hawaiian aloha,
Yes.
ho'oponopono, these various concepts about what is just and what is appropriate. Pardon me. That being said, on a global perspective, for the sake of just oversimplifying things, there tends to be the duality of East and West. And I'm wondering if these ideas of being able to, my father used to say, make like a duck and let it roll off your back. Or he would always say, like, you don't have to respond to something. He was very Taoist in that way. Like, you don't have to respond to everything. My mom would say, choose your battles wisely, which is a different philosophy. But we often hear this idea, you have to fight fire with fire. And that's the whole rhetoric that's being used now to launch these airstrikes in Syria. And I don't expect us to get into a big foreign policy discussion, but at some point, as Gandhi had said, an eye for an eye makes the whole world blind. At what point can we literally say, okay, enough is enough? Like, we just have to understand. You can understand that something happens. You don't necessarily have to agree with it or accept it. However, for you to move on, instead of perpetuating this fire with fire mindset, you have to be able to have forgiveness or take the high road, as they say. What do you think is the biggest block to people embracing nonviolence?
Well, we have gone to Moon and Mars, but we have not learned to live in peace with our fellows on Earth. We have advanced ourselves in every area of life, science, technology, and every single thing. But we have not taught our children and youths how to live in peace with others and live in harmony. No one is superior to others. No one is born as a criminal. It's just the particular society we live in, what kind of influence we have from our parents, teachers, neighbors, or peers. That makes your character and personality. So if you live with good people, you become a good person. If you live with druggies or gangster, you become the same. So it's that your association, your company with those people make a difference in your life and way of thinking. The best thing I can suggest will be the following life for everyone will be love, kindness, and forgiveness, and move on. Do not look back what you have lost, what has gone wrong. Forgive the oppressors and your enemies, and make friendship with them, and then they'll make a change in the world. If people can practice at personal level, social level, at national level, international level, then we can live as a large family on Earth. So otherwise we will be divided for forever, and this chain of violence will continue. Millions of people have died. We had over 180 wars after World War II. Every time the world commits no more war, but then we propel to the same direction, is because the differences we have, the hatreds, the boundaries we have created. God gave us one land, but the enemies of peace have divided into borders and lands. And recently the whole world witnessed in Iraq, Christians and Yazidis were forced to convert or pay tax, or they were beheaded. So now they have been displaced all over in Turkey and Lebanon, all over. So imagine how it's impacting the whole world. It's causing a domino effect. That's why the world is watching and awakening right now. Then I do not support war, but certain wars can be justified to remove the evil. So then there might be peace as well. So
I would add to this discussion, there is the business of war. That's probably another show with another guest, but there's a lot of money, unfortunately, that's made off of war, especially when you start getting into missiles and jets and fighter planes and all of those wonderful things that our tax dollars go to. Let's bring it back to personal peace, because I think for those viewers out there who might want something that they feel that they could follow, these are merely suggestions. Everyone has to find their own path. I think you and I both believe that it's individual, it's an individual pursuit. It's not one size fits all, but I do think that the wisdom of the elders, when things have worked for generations, there's usually a reason. So we have this visual here because you have a book about this. But my goodness, if you haven't heard of the benefits of practicing yoga, maybe you've been living under a rock instead of on a rock. Yoga, which is many different disciplines, most people, if they have any awareness, they think of it as simply calisthenics or stretching, but it's integrating the breathing and the intention and the focus, and it can be a very sacred, spiritual, meditative practice. For those who want to try yoga, what would you suggest to them as a little stepping stone, just to start?
First of all, I want to explain that yoga is not just about exercise or poses or physical movement. Yoga is a spiritual science. Yoga means the union of lower self, which is our human instincts, with the higher self, with the creator. So yoga also means how you control your senses and mind, how you control your aggressive instincts within self and impulses and emotions, and how you live a simple or peaceful life and healthy life, and how you make a balance within yourself, and then when you are happy and centered, you share happiness with others.
Yes, so it's not just asanas, it's not just poses, it's in many ways it's kind of a recipe for life.
It's a way of life to have a good conduct, non-stealing, non-injury, and respecting all human beings, and not killing even animals. So that's what yoga practices or principle and teachings are.
So this is a nice way to get in touch with the self. I find that even though the body is what we believe it houses the spiritual being or the soul, we still have to contend with it. We still have to deal with it on a daily basis and take care of it. And when you are in touch with your body, or as some people would say that you're in your body, I think it actually increases your chances to feel in touch with your sacred, in touch with your spiritual self. So I think the nice thing about yoga, and there's many different practices, there's many different styles, whether you're doing hatha or ashtanga, my goodness, so many styles, yin yoga, sustained flow, things that are fast, things that are challenging, they all are working with the breath, the centering. And it's also in its own way a quieting of the mind, which if you can quiet the mind, then the chances of quieting your mouth and everything else increase, and then it allows for that reflection. And I think it's that moment of reflection where we can kind of assess and really take into account what is actually going on, instead of just working as a reactive way, as you mentioned, our base responses.
Well, we live in a pill-popping society where pharmaceutical companies have made all kind of medication to suit your needs or headache or problem. So we have become addicted to medicine for every single problem, versus finding the root cause of problems and finding solutions and getting out of those problems. The state of perfect health exists when there is a balance at the physical, mental, emotional, and a spiritual level. And yoga is the way which takes you on that higher level, and also following the practicing and meditation and pranayama. Pranayama means deep breathing and expansion of life source or energy. We can live without food for 40 days, we can live without water for 7 days, but we cannot live without our breath even for 1 minute. So
I don't want to try to see if I can live without food or water.
So you can imagine this vital energy, the life force within us every second, making changes in our energy and blood function, heart level, our lungs, or digestion, everything. So everything flows with the breath movement. So more you calm your breath or relax yourself every 2 hours, be aware where I am, what I am doing, how's my breath rate, and if you can lower it from 18 times per minute to 8 times per minute, you'll become like a master in yoga. You can deal with any stressful situation. You can overcome your emotions or depression, anything.
Yes, so we have an image here. It says anger and nonviolence. Could you tell us a little bit about this?
Well, this is the book after 9/11. I thought it was the time to bring Gandhi's teaching back to the modern world. So I put those special leaders on the cover page, Gandhi, Dr. Martin Luther King, Nelson Mandela, and Mother Teresa.
Right.
These were the very special soul on earth who made a big difference in our life. If they would not have done good things for us, we would not have been enjoying these rights and freedom today and justice.
Right.
So we should be very thankful and follow their legacy and footstep and create the same good things on earth. This book has a history of Gandhi's life, and I have added a lot of chapters about the bullying in the school,
Yeah.
Social and violent crimes in our community, and the war happening at international level, and how we have a whole chapter at the end about world peace. So
Wow.
this book will make a difference. I would like to donate this book to all the mental health center, prison system, libraries, and maybe some department at the Army or Navy, so we all can learn, even in a tough situation, how we deal with others or aggressive people calmly and peacefully. So.
That is always essential, especially when not only does it increase the chances for misunderstanding, but sometimes there are situations of life or death, so we can never minimize the importance of knowing how to deal with people when they're in various states of distress. And hopefully we can address those issues when they're small problems and not let them again become bigger ones. We have to take another break. But we have so much more to share with you. We have another segment here on the Art of Life, so please stay tuned.
Hello, I'm Martin Despang, and I'm the host together with the one and only Ali Amashta, and our show is called Urban Transcendence. And Urban Transcendence is about identifying where we have a unique situation of a vibrant city in one of the most beautiful natural environments. So how these two can coincide, sometimes conflict, how they could find reciprocity in the 21st century is what we're excited about. And we're planning on bringing in a diverse body of guests, both from the arts and the science and the established and the wise and the emerging generation. So hope you will join us. We'll always be on Thursdays from 1 to 2 p.m. Thank you.
Wouldn't you love to know what we talk about during the break? It's only 30 seconds, but we just continue the conversation because, thank God, my guests love to discuss things, and we're so indebted to them. Dr. Raj Kumar is with us here talking about commitment to nonviolence and finding ways to implement that in daily ways as well as bringing it into the community. So we have some pictures that we started our slideshow with, and we'd like to continue because the picture tells 1,000 stories. Well, this is the man of the hour.
Correct. He was born on October 2, 1869, and he was assassinated on January 29, 1948.
And yet, you know, I think the thing that is such a double-edged sword is that when we have leaders who are compelling like Gandhi, the message is so meaningful at the time of their life, and it's meaningful now. But I'm almost saddened that we still have to rely on these things because it's kind of a yardstick to show that we haven't come very far. But
the day he was assassinated, I believe the whole world cried. Dignitaries and followers and people traveled from all over the world to attend Gandhi's funeral.
And you know, I think something that maybe people have forgotten, because you know, we do see his image on memes and on Facebook and bumper stickers and what have you, and those are wonderful ways to remember somebody. But I think a lot of people are perhaps unfamiliar with his major role in helping bring forth independence, the movement with the British and the Indians in India.
He was a very shy individual. Then he got a degree in law, and then he traveled to South Africa, and then he saw lot of unnecessary tax being imposed on the people who migrated from different countries.
Right.
And then he felt those were unfair laws, and he started to gather people and opposed it. He was punished and thrown in jail, but he did not give up. Then when he went back to India and he saw the similar kind of discrimination and abuse of power by British Empire, so he continued to use the teachings of Buddhism and Jainism and Hinduism.
Right.
And that teaching was practicing nonviolence. Even people are harsh, aggressive towards you, stay calm and practice nonviolence. Do not overreact. And so he brought transformation in the society. He removed the whole British Empire without using any weapon or army.
And I think that that's something really important to reflect upon, because right now so many of the issues of boundaries, of identity, of nations, whether it's Scotland and the UK last week taking their referendum, or the Ukraine, or Gaza, the list goes on, everything that's going on in Iraq, the sovereignty movement in Hawaii, these are things that have not ceased to exist. I mean, they continue. It seems like they're almost even, there's more of them gaining momentum. And I think it's important for us to look at India as an example where they were able to launch this initiative and have success with it in a predominantly nonviolent way.
Correct.
I mean, for all of the naysayers that say that it can't be done, there's a major example of where it was successful. So this is something to think about.
People all around the world have followed Gandhi's principles of nonviolence, satyagraha. Success might be slow, but ultimately at the end there will be success.
Yeah. We have another image here that's going to help us prompt. So we have the program here. So this event that happens annually, what is this, the 9th year?
This is our 9th annual event.
9th annual event. And you have some
birthday.
Wonderful guests that are lined up for the event. Can you tell us just a little bit? We'll keep a few secrets, so you'll have to go see the rest of the reveal.
We will have an Indian invocation in the beginning and Hawaiian blessing, hula dance, and we'll have a Royal Hawaiian Band playing national anthem of US, India, and Hawaii Pono'i. And also there will be a song by the choir of Unity Church, Let There Be Peace.
Oh, okay.
And there will be different musicians and band and peacemakers and candlelight ceremony at the end. And we have received several certificates from United Nations, Senate, House, and City and County of Honolulu. So we'll be sharing with audience.
And we want to remind people that this is a free event. It's always a free event, and it's so idyllic. It's so beautiful right there underneath the banyan tree in front of Honolulu Zoo, and of course in front of the Gandhi statue, which we've mentioned. There are a few others worldwide. I've seen one in San Francisco and one in New York City this past summer.
There are about 6 statues in our country in USA here, but Hawaii has the most beautiful statue in Hawaii. It's not just a statue, it's a symbol of love, peace, nonviolence, and freedom and justice.
And it's right near the beach, and
Correct.
it's near the animals, and it's under the
beautiful.
banyan tree. It really is. It's very beautiful, and I think it's nice that everyone comes together and they set aside that time to reflect and to set the intention of what they can do individually to promote peace within their own lives and therefore their own families and communities.
Other important thing I forgot to mention, we are having an interfaith conference.
Okay.
We have invited special interfaith leaders to talk about peace and how we can be helpful to promote world peace. So that's another idea. Beside this, we're going to have some other attraction.
Excellent.
We'll have a free snack and water from down to our store.
Yay.
We'll have a free henna art, and we'll have a free psychic reading and Reiki.
If anybody is curious what henna is, I just happen to have some henna, some Mendi art here on the hands. I have some on my feet, but I'm not going to bring my foot up to the desk for obvious reasons. But beautiful,
it's ancient art.
Yeah, a beautiful ancient art that's practiced not only throughout India, but Northern Africa, the Middle East, by women. I guess in a multicultural world, in 2014 a man did it, but it's done with a paste that's made from the henna plant that's ground up It's cool, dark green, olive, very strong medicinal smell, healing for the skin. It imparts a temporary dye which will then fade away when your skin cells start to come off.
It's also a very auspicious ritual for
It
the
is.
ladies who get married.
Yeah.
Before the wedding, they get their hands painted.
Exactly. So it's a nice way to bring a little bit of India here to the heart of Honolulu. We have some other images that you've provided with us. So Indian dance is something that has been featured throughout this event. We have Jyoti Raut here in this image. We have some other pictures. They were fun. I didn't get to look through all of them, so I will be as surprised as our guests. Could we? Oh, okay. Oh, and here we have our governor. I think that's Robin.
Robin, and that's Arun Gandhi, Mahatma Gandhi's grandsons.
Okay.
We had a grace by him in March or April 2011.
How nice.
We had his lectures all over in Hawaii, in universities, churches, and these centers.
That's wonderful. We have some students here.
Yeah, I have been giving lectures all around different schools and college and spiritual centers, how to manage stress in life, how to control your anger, and live peacefully with our fellows and family.
Sounds, oh, that's just great. That's great. You know, I think it's something that I have no idea who these people are. I actually do. These were dancers that we performed last year at the Gandhi Festival.
Yes.
That was fun.
Beautiful dance.
So, oh, and Miss Tulsi,
That was
our
Tulsi
representative.
Gabbard 2 years ago, yes.
Our first Hindu in Congress.
Correct, yeah.
Who's this guy? If you didn't know by now, it's Raj Kumar. So thank you for providing those pictures. I think that they give people an idea of how diverse this is, all different ages, all different backgrounds, different walks of life, students and performers and artists and people in the community at the civic level. So it's something that everyone can be involved with.
Yes, it's
I
open
know
to public.
it could very well be. I'm going to go out on a limb and say this because Hawaii is a very beautiful place. And we do have a lot of diversity, and we have a great deal of tolerance in the islands. That being said, I'm sad to acknowledge that there's also seemingly an increase in crime,
Yes.
in the types of crime that we used to associate with the mainland, or you would
Correct.
see on Cops or
Yes.
CNN. So I think no one can ever be too comfortable or haughty or prideful in thinking that it's beneath them to set aside some time or energy to find the means to promote peace. I think that that's probably one of the pitfalls. The moment that we think everything is okay and we don't have to make it a priority, that's when these really unpleasant things kind of trickle up and bubble to the surface. And I always feel like when you see some of these violent things happening, that's only what we're seeing on the surface. That's the people who've broken through and they've taken action and they've acted in a violent way upon something that is distressing them.
Sometimes violence also happen when we have been abused as a child during our childhood,
Right.
and we have lived in those kind of hostile environment with poverty,
Yeah.
unemployment, and lack of supervision by parents or divorced families,
And there's so
broken
many of
social
those things
system,
right now.
no education.
Yeah.
Those things can continue violence in our society. So there's a lot of social support, education, and churches can play a big role to educate public and
Yeah.
follow spirituality.
You know, I opened up a can of worms on social media and I simply asked the question, what were people's viewpoints on spanking? Almost 300 responses and every imaginable response, but I was pleasantly surprised to say probably about 85% of the responses said that they felt it was never appropriate to strike a child in disciplinary measures. And, you know, I respect that families have to make their decision and you can't necessarily always tell people how to run their families. But I was surprised because I thought that that was a very positive thing, that there's a change in the tide and the reflections. People are no longer comfortable using the reasoning and saying, Well, that's what my parents did to me, and that's what my grandparents did to me, and we pulled the switch, which was what was happening with the NFL, you know. And it's true. There are cultural things and there's regional things. Um, my mother said it was very common, pardon me, in Missouri, to get a whack with the switch. You know, you go and they get a branch and then they
I call it
whip
this,
you with
I
it.
call it this is learned behavior, what
Yeah.
you have witnessed during your childhood,
Exactly.
or you have witnessed during your adulthood, or the way you have been raised, and you feel pride to do the same thing what you have experienced, and that's totally wrong.
And it's surprising how some people will say it's okay to spank a child, but then they would never consider spanking their dog. You know, so there's many gray areas, and this is a much bigger discussion, and maybe something to be discussed at another time. But it really comes back to the idea of nonviolence.
Correct.
Because nonviolence and in the home would be the very things you do to your pets, the things that you do with or to your children, the way that you raise them, the choices you make, even if it's yelling. I mean, you know, a lot of people say, oh, well, I never lay a finger on my kid, but if they're verbally abused or psychologically abused, I mean, those types of scars that they impart are very, very deep.
For lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
You can be strict to discipline someone or your children, and you can be firm at the same time, but
Yeah.
you have no right to hurt or hit other people. It's a violence.
Yeah. My goodness. So we're unfortunately running out of time. You have some images here that you
Yes.
could perhaps share with
I
us?
brought this special
Because-
photo of Mahatma Gandhi. He's carrying a Indian Bible. It's called Gita, as his scriptures. Gandhi read a lot about it. He studied all the religious books, and he practiced the teaching of all good religions, and he cultivated in his life, and then he preached other people. Every evening in his spiritual center, he will unite the spiritual leaders and people from different faiths, and he will do a spiritual prayer. So he that decreased the sectarian violence in India. So that's what we need to do in our society. We need to bring people together,
Yeah.
so we live as a global family.
Well, I think your event that's happening next week,
Yes, on October
on
2nd,
October 2nd, which is a Thursday,
from 5 to 6:30 p.m.
5 to 6:30 p.m., right in front of the zoo by the Gandhi statue. We do encourage you to come, be a part of the community, and experience this. It's a beautiful event, and we're so lucky that you will do this event annually, because I know how much time and energy. I mean, it's a year's worth of planning that goes into this.
It
That's
takes
not
a
an
village.
exaggeration.
It takes a village to put things together, and I
Yeah.
call it a season of nonviolence. We start from October, Gandhi's birthday, then Thanksgiving, then Christmas, then Dr. Martin Luther King birthday in
Excellent.
January. So imagine if we can raise awareness about the season of nonviolence
I like
around
that.
the world, then there will be more peace on earth.
And let it begin with us.
Let
Well,
it
thank
begin
you
with
so
us.
much, Raj Kumar. This is The Art of Life. We're glad that you joined us. Please join us next week for yet another wonderful interview with another special guest. The Art of Life, where we're keeping it Pono.